So why is it such a good idea to listen to an episode about chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME as it's now known? Well, this is about empowering you to take care of yourself in the best way you possibly can, because that doesn't just include mindset and it doesn't just include eating healthy. It includes really making decisions, taking care of your body from every angle, and you are going to love Dr. Jenny. So here we go. What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, Teach Me crew, here we are again. I'm excited to be with you today, and this is going to be a really interesting topic. So, you know that we do a mix of mindset, success, and healthy habits episodes on this podcast. And today's topic is going to, I think, cross over a little bit because we're going to be talking about chronic fatigue. But this is something that if you're dealing with symptoms of this or you're dealing with this syndrome, I think a lot of times people don't believe you, or it doesn't get treated in the way it needed to be treated. And boy, can that mess with how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about life and the attitude we have on any given day. So let's dig into that and see if we can help, and see if just we can increase your understanding of what this means when you hear about it. So joining me today is Dr. Jenny Tufenkian. She's a licensed naturopathic physician with over 2 decades of experience, and she specializes in empowering health-conscious professionals to conquer long COVID and chronic fatigue syndrome fatigue, if I could say that without stumbling over my tongue. She had a personal battle with this, and it inspired her to uncover the root causes and create a transformative system. So I am very excited to talk to you, Dr. Jenny. I know you're also a mom of 2, married, love to be outdoors, love to be in the kitchen. All of that I agree with, except for the kitchen. I'm not so much loving to be in the kitchen. But anyway, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. You know, it's funny. I'm about ready to change that line because it sounds like I like doing the dishes, and I don't like doing the dishes. I like cooking and creating food, good food.
You know what? That's a good point. It could go either way. I assumed you meant cooking. So
Yes, I'm cooking.
That's funny. So let's just lean into this OMG teach me what I didn't learn in school idea. So tell us, to start with, what's something that you wish you had learned in school?
I wish I had understood that not everything I was feeling and experiencing was me. I wish I had understood that we are not just a physical body, we're also a mental, emotional, and an energetic body. And some of us are super astute and aware of what's going on in our environment, and we take on the energies of other people and those around us. And some of the things that I was feeling in school and at home, it wasn't all me. I was sponging up other people's stuff, and I thought it was me, and I had to carry it and feel it and process it. And I just wish that we were taught how to do energy clearing in first grade and to understand all these different levels of being that we are.
You know what? I love that answer. And it's interesting because I was a classroom teacher for 12 years, and I'm pretty empathetic. I kind of do feel energy from people a lot. I think all of us do, but a lot. And I finally realized that the reason I was feeling burned out was because I was taking on the energy of like 30 teenagers all day, every day.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. My mom was also a school teacher, and she also got chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, and burnout, and had to quit because of it. And she realized the same thing. And my kids always were so exhausted that first week of school, like about this time of year. They were just so tired. And so I would share with them I understood what was happening. All of a sudden they're around all these other bodies and all this other energy and a schedule and in a system that didn't allow them to go run out in the field or climb a tree or do something if they needed to. And so they were just stuck with all this. And so I did my best to explain what I knew at that time then. But
Yeah. Wow. You know what? I'm thinking about my kids when they were in high school. And I think had I known this better and been able to share this with them, or had they
yeah,
learned it, it really would maybe have made a difference. Yeah.
yeah,
Great answer.
yeah.
Great answer. Okay. Well, related to that, I'm
Mhm.
curious, how did you end up going into naturopathic medicine?
Ooh, that's a story. So I had an epiphany when I was 6 months pregnant with my first child. I was unexpectedly pregnant. I had just broken up with his dad. He's British, and I came home from Britain, thought I'd missed my period because of the jet lag and the grief, and then figured out I was pregnant. I also had an injured knee, so I couldn't do what I had done before for money, which was bake professionally. I did have my college degree in political sociology. I'd taken a year out. I was trying to decide, am I going to study law? Am I going to go into education? Like, what am I going to do to help the world? I was very mission driven. And I was 6 months pregnant, and I had this my parents were very generous and had me go through paid for me to go through a personal growth training. And I went on and did this advanced introduction, did not like the presenter at all, did not want to do the program with him. But he's told a story about this woman who was a cashier at a grocery store, but always wanted to be an airline pilot. And now she flies for what was then called Horizon Air and is now Alaska Air.
Ooh.
I got into my mom's car 6 months pregnant. I mean, I had no money. I showed back up on my parents' doorstep, like pregnant with no money and sad. After having left there when I was 18, I showed up 7 years later, like, hi, maybe we have some things to heal, which is exactly what happened. And I got into my mom's car at 6 months pregnant. I thought, I always wanted to be a physician, but I didn't think I was smart enough because I got a C in high school biology. I didn't even study for that test. It was one test. I didn't study for it. I just walked in. Once I learned how to study, I got an A, but in my brain, I still interpreted myself as not smart. And this stayed with me, even though it's what I wanted. And I thought, you can do that. You can do that. You're smart enough to go back to school and get a degree and become a doctor. So I looked around, and when I found naturopathic medicine, it was a perfect fit. I was always, all the way through grade school and high school, I was everyone's counselor. In high school, when people's grandparents died or they broke up with their girlfriends or boyfriends, we would meet in the cemetery, we would climb a tree, and we would do counseling sessions in the tree in the cemetery. I was obsessed about nutrition as a sixth grader when everybody else is eating Cheetos and bologna sandwiches. I was baking whole wheat bread. I was bringing raw vegetables, raw mushrooms and peppers for my lunch in sixth grade back in the 70s. And when I was able to bring this idea of nutrition and the mind body connection and all of this and be able to bring in the left brain and the right brain, I was like, this is a perfect match for me.
Wow, I love that. And I'm a big fan in general of naturopathic medicine. And I think you might be the fourth or fifth naturopathic doctor that we've had on the podcast about all different things. But yes, I love that it's a combination
Yeah.
of nutrition and medicine and just putting everything together as a whole person. So, wow. And I got chills about the pilot story too. So,
Right.
already the listeners have learned, go and do what you want to do, right?
Go for your dreams. It's never too late.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Okay. Well, that's a great start. And so today what we want to talk about is chronic fatigue. So let's just start with the basics. What is chronic fatigue syndrome?
Chronic fatigue syndrome now has a new name called myalgic encephalitis, which actually helps explain it better. Myalgic is your muscles, encephalitis is brain, your inflammation in the brain and the muscles. And it's a chronic condition that can ebb and flow through time. It can be triggered by many different things, which is one of the challenges. It's not the same for everybody. And it's classically diagnosed as it's one of those things you have to rule out all the other reasons you might be tired. It's not anemia. It's not because you just had a kid. It's not because you have cancer. You have to rule those things out. And then you get left with, oh, well, it must just be chronic fatigue / myalgic encephalitis. Usually people who have it have unrefreshing sleep. They may sleep well or they may not sleep well, but it's unrefreshing sleep. It's fatigue that lasts for months and months, and it can wax and wane. You can have periods of the day where you have energy and periods of the day where you don't. And then one of the other things is this thing called post-exertional malaise. And this is where you do a little bit extra outside of your normal and you pay for it. Maybe not that day, maybe it may be 2 days later that it may show up. So for instance, maybe you can do a 3-mile walk, but if you go for 7 miles for a hike, then you're just paying for it for days or for a week later. Or if you're really exhausted, many of my patients are like, well, I can do the dishes, but if I do the dishes and the laundry, I'm back on the couch.
Ooh, okay. Okay. And that was going to be one of my questions is, we all have days where we feel tired and
Yeah.
we know
Right.
what it feels like to feel tired. So
Yeah.
what does this look like at that next level?
Yeah. It's interesting. Before I was diagnosed with this, when many, many decades ago, one of my therapists who really saved my life, she's a hypnotherapist, but I was complaining about being tired. And she's like, you always say that. Why are you saying you're tired? Like, I'm tired too. And I knew she didn't understand what I meant. And now what I say is people that have myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, can talk about different kinds of tired, like wine sommeliers talk about wine. So one of my patients calls it, I'm a sommelier of tired, once I told her that. The difference is, and I've been on both sides of the fence because I've had this condition and I've put it completely into remission, and I was able to have my energy be at 150%. And I had long days when I was teaching in clinic and ran my office and was working 17-hour days. And then I'd have days that were shorter and I'm picking up my kid from school and I'm being full-time mama. And I had another child and I was up at night with him. And of course I was exhausted from those early months. And I remember being up with him and being tired and going, this is so different, because I know that if I get sleep, I will feel better. I know that when I take a nap, I will feel recharged, that when I get a good night's sleep, I will feel better. And I did. And that's different. And that's the difference. It's like, there's no trust that you're going to get your energy back. Or if you do have a peak of energy, you blow through it right away and then you pay for it.
Okay. And can it be to the point where someone is just kind of falling asleep as they sit at their desk? Or is it more like a feeling of kind of just body dragging type of tired?
Yeah, it's both. Yes, and yes, it can be either one of those. It depends on where you are in the continuum of it and how your body is responding to it. What I find a lot are people that come in to talk to me and they don't actually tick off the box that says, yes, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis, yet they're talking about how tired they are. And often in that first conversation, people will say things to me like, oh, well, I'm tired, but if I just got to the gym, if I just exercised more, or if I just cleaned up my diet a little bit. And what I often find, especially with women, I think this is more of a thing with women than with men for just kind of social reasons, is we tend to think that it is all on us to change something in our behavior, that something that we're doing is wrong. Somehow we're wrong, and that's why we're tired, and not really being willing to think that, oh, maybe there's actually something going on with me that I need to look at, that somebody could help me with to shift.
Right. That's a great point because we do feel like we should be able to do it all. Or
Right.
maybe we
Yeah.
feel like, well, yes, I have young kids and I have a job and I have a this and a that. So of course I'm tired,
Right.
right?
Right. Of course you're tired, and of course you're going to keep pushing yourself because we're very good at enduring, and that's part of how we survive. And there are everybody else's needs, and we are attending to those if you're kind of in that stage of life. So yeah, it's very easy to push what's happening to you underneath. But to answer your question, like, what does it actually feel like? Is that really what you're asking?
I guess, if someone is thinking, well, yeah, I get tired. Look,
Yeah.
how do we know this is different?
Right. I think that's a really good question. And I think the thing to ask yourself is, if you're feeling tired and you're wondering, do I have myalgic encephalitis or long COVID, or is this me just being tired? One thing you can do is you can stop and take a break. So if you go away, if you just take a few days off and relax, you give yourself a weekend where you just cross everything off your list. If you go on vacation and see how you feel, those things can be clues. They're not 100% decisive for a couple of reasons I can go into, but that can make a big difference. If you just slow down, do you recharge? Do you feel better or not? And do you feel 100% better or not? I can tell you what is normal. And what I can tell you is when I first crashed, I was in medical school and it was very severe and I was in bed and had to take a year out of school, had IVs in my arm. It was a really, really intense, deep illness that I learned a lot from. And then I got 150% better, never thought I'd get it again. And then I did right around perimenopause for very good reasons, partly perimenopausal, partly because I had an injury and I was in pain and I couldn't sleep and all those things. If you take a break and it feels better, that can be a sign that maybe it's just the stress of your life that's getting to you. And you need to look at how you're structuring your day and give yourself more time, more breaks in the day. And kind of maybe there's a different need that's not being met. But that said, there can also be other reasons why leaving your home may be making you feel better, such as if you have mold or mycotoxins in your home. One of the ways we can tell if your home is toxic is by having you leave and you feel better. So some people who have myalgic ME, chronic fatigue syndrome from a mold toxicity, they leave their homes and they feel better. So you have to kind of be careful with that. Some people, even with chronic fatigue ME, can feel better on a break just because they have less stress, because another one of the common triggers is this limbic brain that kind of gets activated in stressful responses. So if you remove yourself from your common stressors, then you may feel better for a little bit of time. When I got chronic fatigue the second time and I crashed, and then as I came out of that, and again, I got back to 150% full-time energy. And this is me being in perimenopause, and I was able to work out and be super fit and all of those things and be really strong and have tons of energy. This whole myth that you lose energy as you age, I mean, there are some changes that happen, but you should still have full vitality in your, as you're going through your 40s, 50s, and 60s, waking up in the morning, ready to go. Like I woke up in the morning and I live on a little mountain here. And I was like, I couldn't wait to get up and run up that mountain. Like my body wanted to go. That's normal in the morning. And I had energy to cook all my food and do all my things and get my kids to school, do my full day of work. For me, my pause in the afternoon was switching from being doctor to being mama, to getting into that kitchen, being creative with what I made for dinner, and then be able to help the kids. And that's normal. And then being tired at night and sleeping well so I can wake up the next morning and do it over again. It didn't feel like I was pulling from a deep savings account. It didn't feel like I was pushing myself. I didn't use caffeine. I didn't need a stimulant to make any of this happen. That is normal. So few of us experience that in this day and age. Yet that is truly the thing that's the goal. That's where we're going to. And so wherever you are, that's the challenge is what do you need to do to get to there?
The self-image we have in our minds, the way we think of ourselves, is such a powerful thing and really directs everything that we do. And one piece of that is feeling good about how we look. So if you want to feel good in your skin, wash your face every night, make sure to moisturize, and check out my favorite skincare, which is Derm Results Advanced. You can find it at omgteachme.com/recommendations.
Some of you just need to make a little bit of a lifestyle change or change something in your diet or change something in your supplement regimen. There are others of you who have something that is really pulling on your autonomic nervous system, on your immune system, that's pulling you down so that you are exhausted most or all of the time. And to answer your question, what does it feel like? What kind of tired feels like depends on the root cause. For people who have a chronic reactivated virus like Epstein-Barr virus, it can feel like this immense heaviness in the legs, like it feels like you're walking through molasses or cement in your body. You can have bizarre nerve pains that go up and down your arms, or weird tingling on your skin or burning sensation, and just kind of this overall heaviness. Brain fog is neuroinflammation, and that's very common with a lot of people with myalgic encephalitis, and that can be triggered by toxins, by viruses, by that limbic brain inflammation. Any of those things can impact that. So another symptom of long COVID myalgic encephalitis is that brain fog. And so the different kinds of tired, depend. Some people whose root cause has to do with hormone imbalance with the ovaries and the adrenal glands and the thyroid, their kind of tired is going to be different. They may have more of a wired and tired feeling where they feel like, I call it sorry for the brand here, but the Dunkin' Donuts coffee, like driving across the country. It's 2:00 in the morning and you get that pint of coffee to stay awake. It's like, it's sort of that wired and tired bad coffee feeling. That is a wired and tired, and that can be from people who their root cause has to do with that cortisol level either being too high or too low. And it's like bad fuel in the body. So the different kinds of tired depend on the root cause. And that's part of what I'm listening for when I meet with people, because we can begin to, even in that first visit, begin to figure out what it is just from how they're explaining how they're feeling. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to answer that and say, this is how it is for everyone. I would just say that if you do not feel normal, then you need to get some help and support for that and talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap that up, because it does seem like it could vary. And tiredness is such a pervasive thing, right? Like I would bet you that 99% of the people listening to this are thinking, well, yeah, I'm tired.
Exactly.
So yes, thank you. That's really well said. Now, I think that we can kind of guess, having listened to what you just said, but I know there have been issues with people being able to get treatment for this or having it even recognized. And I can kind of see why that would be the case. It's tricky, but talk to us a little bit more about that.
Right. Well, just exactly what we talked about was everybody's tired, including your doctor. So you walk in and you say, I'm tired. There's part of their mind that's going, oh yeah, honey, tell me about it. I guarantee you that's part of what's going on. So like, oh, you want to know about my life? Well, let me tell you. I've had that experience myself when I went and saw a neurologist and I was trying to get a brain scan for something that was going on with my head. And she was like, so what's this adrenal fatigue thing? Like, how do I know if I have it? But so the real issue though is it's a couple things. So in the conventional medical system is set up on this structure that says, okay, if you have a condition, it has a name. We have a test for it. We can say, yes, you have it, or no, you don't. And then we have a treatment for it. And we can tell if the treatment's working because we can go back and retest you. And that's the system that the doctors really feel good about and are trained in. All of the conditions that don't fit into those neat, tidy little diagnostic boxes are a challenge for the conventional system and how it's set up. So you have doctors and patients really frustrated because it doesn't match up at all. You walk in there and you say, I'm feeling really exhausted. Here's what's going on with me. If you have a good doctor, they're going to listen to you and believe you. Not all doctors believe us when we say we're not feeling well. And it's partly more women get this condition than men. And it's still that, hangover of the female hysteria story of now, honey, we don't really need to believe what you're saying. But that aside, even with a really great doctor is left without a lot of tools. So they run lab tests on you. They do the conventional labs. Most of the time, people with myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, are going to have completely normal looking labs to a conventionally trained doctor. Now, there may be subtle things in there where your labs are within the normal limits, such as your white blood cells may be technically normal, but they might be a little high or a little low. That could be a clue that something's going on with your immune system, but they're not trained to look for that. Or it could be that you have low ferritin, even though you don't have straight anemia. So there are little subtle signs that could be seen. And then the other problem is that people tend to look fantastic with this condition. They don't look sick. They look really good. They can look really great. And so they look good. Their labs are normal. They're not really believed. And so they just get told, sorry, I'm not sure what to do with you. I've had many, many, many patients come in who are told, I'm sorry, we have no answers for you. Get used to it. Just start drinking more coffee, things like that.
Yeah, that's hard because you're not feeling great and you're going where you think you should go and they have no way to help. It's frustrating for sure. Yeah.
It's really frustrating. And I actually just looked at an intake from a patient who's been sick for a couple decades. I talked with her yesterday. And honestly, when I was looking at her intake, it brought up my anger around the frustration that so many people experience in the system, where there just aren't the answers that they really deserve and need to have to treat this condition.
So So let's give people who are listening to this some hope. I don't want to end it there and be on a downer. Well, how can people find a doctor that would recognize this or would test for it properly or would, listen to them and know what it is that they should be looking for? And obviously you're one of those people, but let's talk about that in a general way also.
Yeah. So generally, I would begin to look for people who talk about myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, long COVID, when they're having conversations on their websites, that their front desk staff know what these conditions are. And then you can begin to ask them, how do you approach this? It really should be approached in an individualized way. There is no one protocol that's going to work for everybody. That just isn't how it is, because it's something where it's considered heterogeneous, as in not everybody is the same who has this. You can have different kind of root cause that triggered it in you. And what got you into this condition is part of the clues to what's going to get you out. So you need to have somebody who does something called individualized medicine, is one of the terms that we use for it, or, looks at you as an individual.
Okay.
I would look for somebody I'm biased in terms of, I think that the people who have some sort of integrative medicine, naturopathic medicine, functional medicine training in their background are more likely to be able to kind of help you if you don't fit into the neat, tiny boxes, because that's where we shine. That's why we're doing this work, because there's a whole other field of medicine that is here for us to tap into. And personally, when I see the future, I see that we're able to see the best of conventional medicine and then also all of these other forms of medicine, and we get to use all of them for whichever we need at the time.
I'm glad you said integrative, functional, of course, naturopathic. I mean, that gives us some terms to look for too. And I've heard all of those terms before, but I don't know if everybody has. So
yeah. And then within that, of course, it's finding the person that you relate to. So you need to find the right fit for you. We're not, I'm not the fit for everyone, and another doctor is not perfect for everyone either. So you need to find the right one for you. So I think if you have a chance to have a conversation with a practitioner before you work with them, that's a great thing. And just see, how does it feel to be with them? That's important. My kids went to Montessori school. Montessori education can be great or it can be terrible. It depends on the administration and the teachers, right? And it needs to be the right match for your child. So do the same thing for you. Find the one that's a good match for you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. And I don't know whether I'm about to make a generalization that's not fair or not, but I find that in my parents' generation in particular, there's this feeling that we don't question the doctor and the doctor knows everything and we go to the doctor we've always gone to. And I don't think like that, just because in my family we've had some stuff, we've had to figure out who in the world could help us with this and go, beyond that. Yeah. So I'm glad you're saying like everyone should do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're dealing with a complex chronic condition, if you are one of those people that has multiple root causes and you've been not feeling well for a while and you haven't been getting the answers, you may need a couple different people on your team to support you. That's also a possibility. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and that can be really beneficial.
That's really helpful. And I don't know how far of a tangent I'm going to take us down, but we haven't really talked about long COVID today. We were talking about chronic fatigue syndrome, and I don't trust myself to say ME correctly. So ME, but I know you work with patients who have both. Do they present kind of similarly?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they're very similar. When the pandemic started, I gave a presentation on International Myalgic Encephalitis Chronic Fatigue Day. And I said, you know what, we're going to have a second pandemic, because two of the root causes to getting ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, one is getting an infection or reactivating a chronic infection. The second one can be emotional stress, limbic dysfunction. We have both happening all around the globe. Yeah. Everybody's getting this. Everybody is just stressed out beyond anything they had ever experienced before, most of us. And I predicted that we were going to have something like this. I didn't know it was going to be called long COVID. At the time, I was teaching doctors and everyone who was interested about how you can address chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis. And I was pretty sure what I knew would apply to long COVID, but I wasn't 100% sure because I hadn't seen enough people yet. And then I ended up getting COVID, and it reactivated my chronic fatigue. So I got long COVID. So I got to experience from the inside how it's the same and how it's different. And it's pretty interesting. I do see that all the root causes are exactly the same. What I would say is there are a few distinct things that happen differently with people with long COVID, or can happen with long COVID, depending on when they got COVID, like which COVID variation they got, which SARS-2 virus they got, and how much end organ damage they experienced. And there's a little bit of a mystery with COVID, kind of like people who have Lyme disease. COVID is a very interesting critter. It's almost like it shapeshifts a little bit like Lyme disease does, where it's kind of hard. You think you're better and then you're not. You think you're over here and then it takes a weird right turn and you're somewhere else in your body. And it can be kind of interesting how it shows up in people. But that said, I treat it the same way. I see them as being the same thing. It's just that they were activated. It was activated by this virus. It turned it on in that person for whatever reason. And what I find really interesting about the long COVID piece is it has such a powerful impact on the nervous system. A lot of people feel really agitated. Some people, when they got COVID, they felt anxiety or depression. Some people with long COVID, the virus is literally in this vagus nerve, and it can feel very agitating, and you can feel agitated without knowing why. And it can create this huge amount of something called dysautonomia. And there's been a lot of understanding now about POTS, which is a postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where people have cardiovascular issues and blood pressure issues and all these different things. And that's because this virus in particular has an affinity for going into the nerves and the nervous system and into the brain. And so that's why we're seeing so much brain fog and neurological symptoms from this condition. And I'd say there's more of that with long COVID than with ME, but they both have it, if that makes sense.
But the long and short of it, I guess, then is it's treatable, it sounds like.
It is treatable. It's treatable to put these things into remission. Once your body has experienced this, it always knows how to go back. I have two goals when I work with people. The first goal is to get them to their next level of health. The second goal is for them to become more empowered in their own self-care. I want you to be able to understand what is it that your body resonates with? Like, what forms of medicine work for you? What are your triggers? If we get your chronic virus reactivation into remission, we need to understand what are your triggers so that you can preemptively treat it, so you don't go have another downslide. That second time I got chronic fatigue, I learned a very powerful lesson of how quickly you can relapse. I was at 150%. I didn't think I'd ever get it again. But then I slowly started to go down, ignoring my signs and symptoms, thinking, oh, that'll never happen to me. That's not me. That's not happening. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, I'm here. And it was terrifying to be there again. And that's when I realized that the body already knows how to do this. So you have to catch yourself, which I've been able to do. And I honestly think everything that I knew really helped me from not getting more severe long COVID than I did, because I already had this toolkit in hand of like, okay, right, mitochondria, okay, limbic brain, okay, right, viruses, like,
Yes, that makes sense. Absolutely. That makes sense. And I think it's an empowering message too, because certainly chronic fatigue and now recently long COVID, it feels like this sentence that, oh, yes, well, I'm down and out. That's it for me. And it doesn't have to be.
That's me with my flag going, please don't believe that. Don't believe that. I get it's hard. I get it feels terrible. I get it's terrifying. I get you're not getting the answers you need. But I believe that there's always a way for your body to heal. You just have to find what is it that your body needs to be able to flip into healing mode, out of this breakdown mode into this healing mode. It may take more than one thing, and it will take time, but there is a path for you. And I truly believe that.
I love that. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, okay. Well, as we're wrapping up then, tell us, how can people find you online, connect with you, or learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to go is to go onto my website, drjennytufenkian.com. On there's information about different things that I offer. And there's also a quiz. If you're interested to explore what your root cause might be, you can take the quiz. It's really fun, and check that out. Or if you're interested in having a chat with me, you can apply to book a call.
Okay, great. And I will put that link in the show notes as well, so that'll be really easy. Perfect. Okay. Well, that takes us to our unrelated but important question as we finish up this episode. So, listeners know that on Spotify and Amazon Music, we have a nostalgia playlist, and you get to add a song. So, what is a song that has good memories attached to it or a feeling of nostalgia for you?
Yeah, that when I saw that question, oh my, so many songs came to mind. But I have landed on Riki Lee Jones, Chuck E's in Love.
Oh gosh, I feel like I should remember this song and I don't. So I'm going to have to go look it up right away afterwards.
I do not have a good enough singing voice to sing it.
I love it. Okay, well, that's going to be a great addition to the list too, because I know as soon as I hear it, I'm going to go, oh yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Dr. Jenny, thank you so much. I really do think that this is going to be impactful because as you're listening to this, you may be recognizing yourself and you may be thinking, wow, I can get help. Or maybe it's just an empowering message that we need to take care of ourselves and find somebody that we really relate with that can help us do that. So both of those are great. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Excellent. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, make sure to follow OMG Teach Me in your favorite podcast app so you get all the goodies. And if you're just finding this podcast and you're kind of wondering where to start, I have a curated mini series for you to help you stop self-sabotaging because we all do it. So head over to www.omgteachme.com and sign up when you get the pop-up box. We may not have learned all these things in school, but they sure are powerful now.